Hi, this is the Pawpaw District Library, and we're doing a chat about fishing. We're calling this Fish Talk, and we have two local fishing experts, Dave Forrest and Randy Van Dam from
DNR Sports Center, yeah.
Center. And Dave is a retired guy and has been fishing for years and years, so I'm just going to throw out a couple questions, and they're going to talk about fishing our local lakes.
We were up in North Dakota, and there's a lot of small lakes up in there that we go up there, and we usually go up for duck hunting, but we always take the fishing boat and we fish these small lakes, and we catch a ton of perch and walleye. And we were on this one lake, and we were struggling to find the fish this one day, and we were drifting along, and I picked up this big walleye, and he was a monster. I mean, probably the biggest walleye I ever caught, and I fought him for quite a long time, and we didn't have a net in the boat, no net. So I get him up in a boat, and then my brothers, there was three of us in this boat, and so I sort of thought he had hold of it, and I went and pulled that hook out of there, and he didn't have hold of it. That sucker hit the seat and boom, right back into the right back into
Biggest
the
walleye you ever had.
Yeah, biggest walleye I ever had, and there, watch him swim away. Not that I really cared, but
Yeah. Yeah, you know, them big ones don't eat as well anyway.
yeah, I didn't really
Well,
matter. But
probably
you still like to get a picture of
Yeah,
him.
you want to have your hands on them a little bit longer.
Yeah.
My best one is I was fishing with Ron Perrine, an old dear friend of mine that has since passed, but he was from Lima, Ohio, and he had this little company. He made some lures, and we sold the lures in the store, and got to be friends with him. And we were fishing out on Lake Erie, and we were. The first time I fished, I actually caught the state record smallmouth for Lake Erie, or for Ohio there, and we didn't have a net, and it was the same thing. We pulled him in, and it was, how big is it? We went through all that, and it was just the way the whole thing went. Couldn't lift him in. He got a hold of it. He couldn't pick it up. Actually had to grab him by his belt loops and pull him in the boat. But he held on to it, so that was good. But the story goes, we were drifting for smallmouth down by the rock bars at Vermilion, and the smallmouth fishing was really good. You're just catching them, so you're just drifting along and letting the current drive. So we're dragging each. You have two poles on. We just had tubes on both of them, and he hooked one, and quite often you got doubles, type thing. And he put the other pole down on the thing, and he kind of put his foot on there, and he was fighting that one. Well, one grabbed the other one, and I was fighting a fish, and it pulled his pole out, type thing. And it's like, oh man, it was a Loomis rod, type thing, probably a $200, $300 rod, reel with the reel. It was a Stradic reel. I remember that. It was probably $400 outfit or something like that. Gone. And he's like that, and we got our fish in this net, and threw out there, another cast of drift, everything, and he hooks another fish, and he gets it in, and the fish had a line around it. The fish swam evidently between this pole and his line, got the line. He landed that fish, grabbed the line, pulled up the pole with it, reeled the pole in, and the other fish was still on the pole. So he got his pole back and the fish of that thing, and it was just the craziest thing ever. I'm like, what are the odds of that?
Yeah, what are the odds of that? Well, it was on the Boardman River, and my wife was doing her student teaching, so it's over 20 or 30 some years ago, and she was doing her student teaching up there. We were living in Traverse City, and so I sort of took a sabbatical, left what I was doing, and just all I did was fish the whole time she was up there. And anyway, so all the steelhead and the browns and the rainbows all follow the salmon when they come up in the river, and so I was fishing. You'd get behind the salmon and fish behind them, and go for those smaller rainbows and browns, And I was struggling. You know, I would catch a fish now and then. And this old guy, he was up on the bridge, and he had his fishing pole with him, and he'd come down and he come down to me, and he says, you know, he says, I've been watching you, and he says, I can tell, you know, you're just not watching that line right. He says, where that line hits the water when we're drift fishing, just using like a single spawn egg is all I'm using, and a real light line, and he says, I don't know what you're watching, but he says, if you watch that line, here's the water, and that line is hitting the water, and you watch that through, as soon as that stops for a millisecond, you set that hook. He says, you're gonna, you know, if you don't catch a fish, you've at least saved yourself from a snag.
Right.
He said, so I started doing that, and I started catching fish, and it made the world of difference. I just was not watching that point. I mean, just staring at it, it's just like anything else. You got to focus.
I think there's a point in all our lives where we've received some advice from somebody that
yeah.
helped us on something, and I know that you know, I've given out advice every day in the store to somebody. You know, it's like, hey, how do you hook up this? How do you rig that? Or how do I catch these? Or where do I go for this? If I want to fish from shore, you know, I don't have a boat. How do I do that? You know, and that's one of the I guess the parts for me, instructing and helping somebody catch fish is one of the most rewarding things that I can get. You know, one of the most asked questions is, I don't have a boat, where can I go from shore? And there's not very many places around here where you can do that. And you know, we're blessed with the park at Maple Lake, and Maple and Ackley there, you can fish there. You can actually catch bass and pretty good panfish from that whole shoreline, you know, around there, and people can take their families there and actually do anything. You know, when they go down, I see so many people at a public access launch where you've got 20 feet, and if someone brings a boat to load in there, you got to wait for them to load and unload in there. Well, it's always hard to, you know, you're fishing every time. There's not always going to be fish in that 20-foot spot, you know, type thing. So having a place where you can move around there and do that, and actually catch something and get kids involved in the thing is a cool thing, you know, type thing. And I know that over the years I had mentors and friends that taught me things, you know, type thing, and just to give back a little bit, you know, feels good. So
no, I've had a lot of people teach me a lot of things over the years. You know, you just got to be willing to listen.
Yep, and willing to try. You know, as I tell people, you know, one of the things is, you know, when you want to learn a technique, is you just got to go out and do it. Just, you know, say, okay, I'm going to learn how to Texas rig a worm, or I'm going to learn how to, you know, drop shot rig for bluegills or perch or whatever, you know, type thing, and troll this Bose bluegill buster, trolling for bluegills, you know. I said, you just got to go out and do it. You just put everything else aside, because what happens for a lot of people is they all have their tried and true favorite things. You know, you got your favorite lure, your favorite spot, your whatever. Well, what do you do when you go out fishing? You always put your favorite thing on and you try that first. And you say, if you don't catch anything, then you go like, okay, I'm going to try one of these other things. Well, the issue with that is the fish don't always bite. As you and I know, there's different conditions that they bite better on. And if you're going to try things when you've already tried your best proven things and they don't work, you know, trying some new things aren't always is the best time necessarily to try that. You know, here's a piece of advice for you all: is doing it. You know, try it when it's good. You know, so if you're going to learn something, you know, learn it when not necessarily the fish aren't biting. Hopefully they are biting. You know, type thing. And there's always those things that you think, okay, this is going to make them bite, and there's nothing better than having somebody else catching the heck out of them to convince you that, yeah, hey, I need one of them too. You know, so fishing.
Yeah, I've always been under the theory, if they're not biting what I like to give them, then I move. I try a different spot.
Sometimes we get caught in our ways, because now that I'm up there and fishing, sometimes I go, I only, you know, I know I could catch some doing something else, but I don't want to do that. I just want, you know, some of that stuff that's so slow where you got to wait and wait and wait. The Van Dams were born to tear up the water, you know, type thing, and sometimes, as I say, if they're not doing it over there, I'm going to move over there. sometimes I don't want to slow down, just old stubbornness on my part. But you know,
Yeah,
hey,
I like to move. I'm
Yeah.
not much for throwing my anchor down and trying. Even for bluegills, I rarely will do that. I
You
mean,
know-
somebody's got to beg me to stop and drop the anchor
Well-
because I'm a.
you're always better off if you can find an active school.
Yeah.
You know, you're always going to catch more fish if you can find an active
Yeah,
school.
or a bigger size
Yep,
fish too.
exactly.
A lot of times, so.
Yep. Yeah, I have 4 favorite seasons. I just love fishing. I just love fishing. I was raised.
Whenever you can get out there.
Yeah, I was raised ice fishing. You know, think as a kid, my dad was a killer ice fisherman. He had a knack right up to the, and he really doesn't go anymore. He's in his 80s now, and he still bluegill fishes all summer long, but he doesn't ice fish anymore. Had been going to Florida for winters for the last number of years, so he hadn't been around for it, but misses it. Still looks at all the lefts to see all the tackle and stuff, but my dad's, as an ice fisherman, he kicked our tail all the time ice fishing, and my brother is probably, maybe arguably, the #1 bass fisherman in the world, Kevin Van Dam, and my dad kicked his butt too ice fishing. So, yeah. But all 4 seasons, it's great because all 4 seasons offer something different. You know, in the winter, the ice fishing, you know, you don't have to have a boat, obviously. The pan fishing can be phenomenal, and it's easy access. You walk out there, you drill a couple holes, you know, you move around till you find them and stuff. You don't have to carry all that equipment around and do stuff to be successful. And it's always the same thing. It's you against the fish. You solve the problem of catching them. You know, some of the fish in the fall time brings all the salmon runs and the fish school up together. The crappie and bluegill fishing during deer season is the most phenomenal fishing of the season type thing. There's huge schools. You can sit out there and you catch so many of them, and no one's out there. They're all in the woods. You know, the spring early spawn. I mean, there's every season has some great things about it. So.
How about you, Dave? What about your ice fishing experience? Do you fish the local lakes around here?
Yeah, I fish a lot of lakes down here. It's way better fishing here than up north ice fishing, unless you're going after the walleyes, the big walleyes or something. Then it's a little better up north. But down here, you can go find bluegills up there. But I think a lot of the lakes, you know, you'll find big bluegills, but they'll be full of spots,
Yeah,
snails,
the grubs
yeah,
in there.
little grubs and stuff like that. And down here, we don't really find that much. Our
You
lakes
got
are pretty clean.
Some lakes that got a few grubs in them, you know, type thing. And all lakes have a tendency to get, maybe occasionally you'll get some in there, but you know, I looked into that because sometimes I've been a little scared of it when I was younger, I guess, type thing.
I
Oh,
don't
look at
think
these
there's
lakes
anything
here.
you can get from them, but
There's nothing. They're firstly they all cook out. They're safe.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
I just tell everybody to add flavor. It's like
Yeah.
salt and pepper, you know.
Yeah, yeah.
We pre-peppered them. I was blessed in that my dad, my grandfather, and my great-grandfather all fished. My grandfather and great-grandfather both lived on lakes in the area here, some of them local. My dad also had a construction company where his partner and his main estimator both lived on lakes here. So growing up as a kid, I spent my weekends and many times during the week staying at those different places and fishing. All I did. Scott Lake was one of my estimators up in Van Buren County here, and then school section was my grandfather, and my dad had property on there, so growing up there we fished there a lot. And then the couple other lakes up out in the area, but in other counties around us here too. So
So what kind of fish were in school section in Scott Lake?
well, we primarily fished anything that swam when we were kids, including turtles, and we caught a lot of bluegills and crappies and stuff type thing, but we kind of started getting a hankering for bass fishing after a while. But in school section particularly, we did a good job of catching some of the biggest dogfish I've ever caught in my life. We did a lot of that too. We just throw bait out on a hook and just wait for them to come, and they you know, they're scavengers, so they cleaned up the lake, and we you know, took care of a few of them. So
All right. How about you, Dave?
Oh, my dad wasn't a fisherman, but my older brother was a big fisherman. My dad used to take us. I grew up in Flint, Michigan, and they have a reservoir there, and we used to go there. My dad would take us, and we'd just fish off the dam at the reservoir and catch just about everything.
Yeah.
In fact, I'm trying to think of what they call that reservoir now, because I was reading the other day, and they're saying per acre it holds more walleyes than any other lake in Michigan.
oh, wow.
And I never realized that.
Wasn't one of the ones that washed out, was it? 'Cause you
No,
got
no,
Wixom
this is
and-
right
Okay.
just to the north and west of the city of Flint.
Okay.
And God, I'm lost of words. I
Drawing a
can't
blank
think
on
of
it,
what
yeah.
they call it.
I would think I knew of it if it had all that many walleyes.
Yeah,
but I'm
well,
not
you
sure
know what?
either, too.
I had never heard of that lake until was the last year I read
Yeah.
an article about. I was just reading. I was researching walleye fishing in Michigan, and you know, I'm
Yeah.
not a real big walleye fisherman, but I've been trying to do more and more, and that's when I found that out, that it
Yeah.
carries all the
Well, our
walleye.
DNR's made a serious effort at, you know, stocking more walleyes in the lakes around the state, and a lot of local lakes here too. We've
Yeah,
been getting
yeah.
them here in some of the local lakes, a little better quantities and numbers too. So
Yeah, I think that some of the best fishing in Michigan is right here where we live. I mean,
Oh,
because
yeah.
I fish a lot up north, and we do catch the perch and the bluegills, but nothing like what we catch around here.
I think this area is probably the panfish capital of the state.
Yeah.
You know, we have bluegills, crappies, and perch, probably better than most places. Now there's places where you can go, you know, you go to St. Clair or Erie and something and get into a big pile of perch at times, but you know, our Lake Michigan perch are probably rival that. But bluegills and crappies, it's pretty good here, pretty hard to beat.
Yeah, I think we have some
Yeah.
of the best bluegill fishing around.
Yeah.
I mean, because you can go to almost any lake in this area and do well.
Yeah.
I mean, you might have to hunt for them, but
Yeah, and
you'll do well.
some of the lakes have pretty good sized ones too, you know,
Yeah,
type thing.
yeah.
There's we run a fish contest in the area, you know, for our store, and we didn't this year with the COVID thing going on, but all the years prior, you know, we had quite a few 10-inch plus bluegills, you know, brought in from a lot of the lakes. We had some 11s and bigger too, you know,
Yeah,
and,
yeah.
and they're from lakes right here. So
Yep, there's some nice bluegills around.
yeah, I know some of the lakes by where you're from and stuff. You know, you get down to Marcellus and some of that area down there,
Yeah.
big Fish
Big
Lake,
fish and-
Marcellus
yeah,
and
yeah.
stuff. That's a really good lake. You know, you get to Christie Lake, that's a good lake.
I think they took a lot of the weed bed out of big fish and little fish too.
Yeah.
They must have sprayed the heck out of that.
Well-
Because I was just there the other day, and man, I was a little disappointed in what I saw.
The spraying has had an effect. The high water's had an effect too. My dad lives on a local lake there's no public access on it though, and they don't spray the weeds there at all. But what we've had this year is the water level is 4 or 5 foot high, so the weed development did not get
Yeah.
going early on. We had a kind of a colder spring, you know, type thing, and the weed development did not get. So normally this time of year we're catching the bluegills out in very deep water. There'll be what I call it perch grass, kind of it's on the bottom out there in that 25 to 28 foot range, and it did not develop this year like in the years past, and I'm just starting to see some of it now show up, but those bluegills are finally moving there, but they've been more of in that 15-foot area on the edge of the, you know, where the weeds are growing. So it's a little bit of a different pattern this year just because of the weather and the high water too. So
We're talking about Bankston Lake earlier, but they have those, I believe they call them red ears,
yeah.
and there's some monster red ears in there.
Yeah, they don't get have as many of them around here. You see a lot more of them a little east of us, you know, over at some of the like Marble Lake chain and some of the lakes down south, you know, a little farther in south here. They evidently have stocked more of them there in the past over that Jackson area and stuff. I'd like to see more of them around here.
Yeah,
we
yeah,
maybe
they're-
should talk to the DNR about that a little bit. But
Yeah, I
they
don't know
grow.
who put them in there, that lake. I don't know who put them in
Yeah,
Mesa
they're
Lake.
like a bluegill on steroids. You got some really
Yeah,
giants,
yeah.
and
They
boy,
got
they're a
that big
tussle.
hump on their head.
Yeah.
And they're fun to catch.
They're a big
Yeah.
tussle. So
Yeah.
yeah, we're blessed with our fisheries here.
Yeah, we are. It's been a good year.
Are those fish good eating?
Yes, yes. They're no different than any other bluegill, I don't believe.
It's hard to beat any of the panfish we have here for eating. And people will talk about, hey, a walleye or, some of the things, but those panfish, they're the sweet white meat that I'd rival it against anything, type thing.
Yeah, and there's 100 different ways to catch them.
Yep, and cook them.
And cook them. Yep, there sure are. Well, we were talking that you have all the piers that you can fish off of, where you can pick up if you get lucky, a salmon or a steelhead, and some seasons you can pick up quite a few perch in there, in between the gobies.
Yeah.
Yeah, and like you said, the rivers, I mean, that's a whole nother subject there. I mean, there's a lot of guys fish the rivers when the fish come running in there, or you could, go after, you bottom feeding fish and no telling what you might pick up. And I'm gonna let you go after that.
All right. Well, I think we got the Kalamazoo and the St. Joe River that really are close to us here, and we're blessed with about every kind of fish comes in. The thing from the salmon and steelhead running up them. We actually have a run of summer steelhead too. That when they get into the piers of the river, they run up to Allegan Dam. They catch them off the pier at South Haven and St. Joe, and sometimes in the middle of summer, the guys go out there with a night crawler or actually a piece of shrimp. Raw shrimp is actually one of the best things. But you can catch some big silver steelhead off there. You don't have to have a boat for that. The catfishing in those rivers is phenomenal. But there's also walleye and smallmouth and largemouth and about everything you could think of in those rivers. A friend of mine he had the state record striped bass for a while. He caught it at out of the St. or Kalamazoo River below Allegan Dam there. Type thing, but it's just a lot of little creeks even too for some brook trout and some brown trout, and you got the Paw Paw River right here that's got a bunch of different kinds of fish in it, and I think there's a lot of opportunity for that. Those are probably the most underfished areas.
And we have several small streams just in the area that you can catch nice trout on.
Yeah,
there's a lot of browns, and they've been stocking some of these lakes that these streams come running out of with trout, and so there's some amazing trout in them.
Well, Paw Paw Lake,
Yep.
as they stock very well with trout. As a matter of fact, I had an old expert in the store the other day. He was catching them 50 foot of water, 25 foot down at night with a lantern, type thing, and he was doing real well at Paw Paw Lake on that, type thing. So we got some other fisheries besides the normal bluegill and bass fisheries that everybody thinks of, type thing. The phenomenal catfishing in those rivers and some of the different things, and they catch some tanks. I mean, I have them brought in the store like this, we've had plenty of them that have been over 30 pounds, type thing, and brought in and stuff, and
That's a fight.
They'll give you
Catfish is
a
fight.
tussle. That's a tank right there when you hook onto one.
I've never caught one that big, but
Yeah.
even if you catch one, something like that, just to get him off the bottom of the lake or river, it's
Yeah.
tough to do.
I got a few guys too that is kind of a lost art too. Bullhead fishing at night. They go
yeah.
out there at night at all these little local lakes. Most all of them have bullheads in there. You just a worm and a bobber around at nighttime. It seems like they come up around shore. I know up at Minkler Lake there, just north of here. That was one of that I grew up on that my dad's business partner lived on. So I stayed there, and if you took a bobber and a worm down there at night to the dock right at dark, boy, they were coming in there, and you could catch a bunch of bullheads, type thing. And
I haven't done that in years.
it's been a long time since I did that.
Yeah,
I used
long
to
time.
that and frogging. I used to love to frog hunt. And that's a little tougher these days than it used to be.
Well, the
but-
limit's so low on them that
Yeah.
I think they only let you take like three.
Yeah,
three
so
frogs.
exactly. So, but lots of other opportunities out there besides the fishing on the local lakes. We've got the rivers and streams and just so many species opportunities. And you know, we have some opportunities, other opportunities for education besides, you know, things like this. The Wolf Lake Fish Hatchery happens to be located right here in our backyard, and they have an interpretive center. They do instructional things out there with a lot of activities for the kids and things. You can go there in the pond and look at the giant salmon and rainbows and big muskies and all kinds of fish there. Just to go there, and
sturgeon in there.
it's just cool to go see, you know, type thing. So, and I recommend everybody, you know, it's a great family thing. Take your kids to the interpretive center at Wolf Lake State Fish Hatchery. I know the COVID thing going on this year, we've got things a little different, but when there's an opportunity, I recommend that to all. So, fun thing. You can fish a tournament every day of the week in the summer, morning or evening. There's many leagues that have just even like 3-hour morning tournaments or 3-hour evening tournaments. BAM stands for Bass Anglers of Michigan, is kind of one of the bigger local groups in this area. They have various tournaments. You'll find that they're, you know, 6 to 20 boats in those, each one of those events and they're on a lot of the local lakes, particularly some of the bigger local lakes in Kalamazoo, but they come out here to Maple Lake and they do a lot of the other lakes out here, and there's other ones that some local bars and things put on series. There was always one up at Baseline, you know, Baseline and Duck Lake and that area too, and there's a lot of opportunity, you know, to get in those just by, you can look online, like I said, at Bass Anglers of Michigan, BAM. If you go on their website, you can see the schedule and just show up and go. So a lot of opportunity for that.
Well, thank you, Randy Van Dam of DNR Sports in Kalamazoo, and Dave Forrest of Lawton for all your advice and helpful commentary on fishing the local lakes around the Pawpaw area. I hope you have learned something. Get out there and fish.